Okay, so Joshua chapter 5, and here we go, I guess. And it came to pass, when all the kings of the Amorites, which were on the side of Jordan westward, and all the kings of the Canaanites, which were by the sea, heard the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan from before the children of Israel, until we were passed over, that their hearts melted, neither was there spirit in them any more, because of the children of Israel. At that time the Lord said unto Joshua, Make thee sharp knives, and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. And Joshua made him sharp knives, and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. And this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise all the people that came out of Egypt that were males, even all the men of war, died in the wilderness by the way, after they came out of Egypt. Now all the people that came out were circumcised, but the people that were born in the wilderness by the way, as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war which came out of Egypt were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord, unto whom the Lord sware that he would not show them the land which the Lord sware unto their fathers, that he would give us, a land that floweth with milk and honey. And their children whom he raised up in their stead, them Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way. And it came to pass, when they had done the circumcising, all the people that they abode in their places in the camp, till they were whole. And the Lord said unto Joshua, This day I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you, wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal unto this day. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month, at even in the plains of Jericho. And they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. And the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land, neither had the children of Israel manna any more, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him, with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him, and said unto him, Art thou for us, or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as captain or prince of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so.
One thing that I noticed with the Septuagint version is every time it's mentioned Canaan or Canaan, or however you want to say it.
Canaan. I say Canaan.
Canaan. It says Phoenicia instead.
Interesting. Phoenicia, huh?
Mm-hmm. So verse 1, it says the kings of the Amorites and the kings of Phoenicia. And then it says that they ate the fruit of the Phoenicians that year.
That would kind of make sense. I mean, well, they are kind of on the bottom part. But I thought the Amorites were up kind of like towards the top part. I'm not sure. But they're still only just right by Jericho. They're not that far in. And apparently there's a place near Jericho.
You remember, well, you've looked more into the names of the nations and how they've changed. So did Canaan become Phoenicia, or did Phoenicia become Canaan?
I think Phoenicia was underneath Canaan. Or no, that was, yeah, that's Philistine. Sorry, the one you were just saying. I'm not sure where they were.
I know from my history class, the Phoenicians were great sailors and tradesmen.
Oh yeah, Phoenicians. Okay, yeah, I think I did see something about the Phoenicians somewhere. Like they might not even supposed to be called Phoenicians. They're like somebody, like somebody mashed up the names. So like they're really referring to these other people, but they call them Phoenicians. I'm not sure. I forget. But I don't know where the Phoenicians come from. I don't remember Josephus saying anything about Phoenicians.
Doesn't history say they're like one of the earliest
Yeah.
civilizations or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it say Phoenicians in there, or just your version says Phoenicians, Stacy?
In the Septuagint, it says Phoenicians in verse 1. And the verse where it says that they ate the fruit of the Phoenicians that year instead of Canaan. So anytime it mentions Canaan in the Masoretic text, it says Phoenicia in the Septuagint text.
Right. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're the same.
That's what I'm thinking is I just didn't know which one, got the name after.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know why his name would be switched to Phoenicia all of a sudden, because...
However, if the Septuagint is the earlier form, then at that time it would be Phoenicia. And then in 1000 AD, when they were, looking at it again, they, said it was Canaan because that may have been what it was at that time. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking.
So yeah, they got there. They did the circumcising because they weren't circumcised yet, and then they.
Which kind of goes against the law of Moses, doesn't it? Weren't they supposed to follow the law of Moses in the wilderness? Weren't they supposed to circumcise their children on the 8th day?
Yeah, they were. So, I mean, you can see that they have a listening problem. They don't listen. That's what half the problems in this book are. They don't listen at all. But I mean, so like this guy, it seems to me like up until the end part, like God's been talking to Joshua, but like not like, hey, here I am, what's up? Or like, no angels or anybody coming. It was just God like whispering to him or something. And then now this dude rolls up and he doesn't know who he is until he's like, yo, and then he falls down on his face and worships. If that was an actual legit, just regular old supernatural angel, I don't see why he should be getting worshipped right there.
Well, didn't Moses fall down and worship at the burning bush? And wasn't he instructed to take off the shoes of his feet? Which, however, also Stephen actually mentioned that during his sermon before he died. He specifically mentions that Moses had to take off his shoes.
Yep.
When he saw the burning bush. So, whether it's a burning bush or whether it's a man, that's
same guy though.
A vision.
Seems to me to be the same dude or same person that's in both scenarios.
Right. That's why I'm thinking it's more figurative. So there must be some point of a burning bush, but obviously with a soldier with a sword drawn, that's, to prepare for battle.
Yeah, mine has a note next to a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. Exodus 23:23.
What's your position on that, Albert? I guess I don't get what you're saying. Are you saying it's a man or not a man?
I'm saying that's got to be God himself right there. It's not some like supernatural angel. It's him himself. So
whatever it is, it's the same as the burning bush. They're one and the same.
Yeah. Same guy. And I would say that that's Jesus, right?
Yeah, I mean, the angels in other spots say, don't bow down to me.
Right, and that's the whole point that's made in John. It's like, oh, angel, like, don't bow down to me because I'm just a fellow servant. So, like, what's up with this angel right here? See, it's not an actual angel. I don't know why it says angel here, but it does. I mean,
well, it's messenger,
angel, I guess, but just that dang word angel.
I thought you read man when you read it.
Yeah, it said man that time.
Well,
Which
it says
verse is it in?
bush. It says bush in Exodus.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely says in the caption above, it says an angel appeareth to Joshua.
Yeah, but that's just tradition. That's not actually in the text.
What's the Septuagint say?
It says man.
Yeah, it says man, a man over against.
But if there's a play on words when it comes to the name of the towns, I'm thinking there may be some significance or play on words in the visions that these guys see too. It's easy to see the vision of a soldier with a sword
Okay,
drawn.
well, actually, I think I just figured out that mystery that I was thinking of before. It says that note right there, it says, a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And then it has the note, Exodus 23:23. I checked Exodus 23:23, and it says, for mine angel shall go before thee, and bring thee unto the Amorites, and Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the blah, 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 blah. I will cut them off. So, the angel of, it's the, I will send my angel before you. That's Jesus, yeah? Or that's this angel here, the guy, same guy. Right? Did I lose you?
No, I would say so. But with me, you're just preaching to the choir.
Oh, well, I didn't realize that was actually, but now that solves it right there. Exodus 23:23.
Doesn't the burning bush say that it's an angel of the Lord as well?
Yeah, I think so.
In Exodus chapter 3?
Yeah, it's just that dang word. They hear angel and they think like supernatural thing with wings that's like appearing and poofing and disappearing, but it just means messenger. So like the bush totally could be a messenger. So could Jesus just showing up before he, incarnated.
I heard some like cockamamie kind of thing that the nation of Israel was going forth and they destroyed Jericho with sound waves. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard that before. That's
I guess
I
skipped. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead to chapter 6, so I didn't mean to.
But I guess I don't get your point, Albert, because you're like, oh, it couldn't be a supernatural angel, but it can certainly be a supernatural Jesus. I mean, what's the difference other than, Christ is almighty, obviously. Right. You can have one supernatural, but not the other supernatural?
No, it's he himself. It's not an angel. So far.
Yeah, but it's still supernatural.
Yes, sure, no problem. That's not the problem that I have. It's the fact that, the angel word. So up until now, there's been no mention of like actual supernatural angels, really, except for maybe with Abraham.
Oh, even if take out the word, a word's just a word. You have, it's the essence or the actuality that makes the big difference, and it was supernatural either way.
Yeah.
Yes, he's saying that. He's just saying that there's two views. One, that it is not God, and the other is that it is God. And he's promoting or advocating the idea that it is God and not something that's not God.
You're just saying that it wouldn't be an angel.
Correct.
Right.
They're not saying it's proof of angel one way or the other, but more not proof.
Yes.
Or evidence, as Albert prefers.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean that's pretty much it for that little chapter there. I guess aside from the fact that they stopped getting manna at this point. So
well, that's a big debate on when the I'm trying to think how that goes. This is a big chapter for the Oh, what was that? When, because of the parched corn, and you can't have parched corn before something or another. And they're trying to prove like, can't remember what it was, the feast days or something, or the Sabbaths. The Sabbath couldn't be on such and such time. And then this angel, you said he's with a sword, and but you're saying in Exodus 23, this angel's going to do some destroying.
Yep, in Exodus, he's gonna go before them and destroy the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Jebusites and all the Canaanites and Canaanites, whatever.
So another thing is in this chapter, everyone gets destroyed, other than, or basically everyone that he said was going to be destroyed is destroyed. So who's left?
They're not destroyed yet. They're about to go through and do all that. But the angel of the Lord or whatever is gonna go before them. Because you'll see later that the Israelites are not really doing all the smiting. Like God kicks, a bunch of people's butts on their behalf.
Well, I know, but in this chapter, it's saying that no one's going to be allowed. That I swore that you weren't to be allowed.
What verse?
Let's see here. Let me get out of Septuagint. I wonder if I was in 6 or 4. Oh, I'm in Exodus. No wonder. I'm like, what the heck?
Well, as far as like in chapter 6, I think, or 7, where the Amorite village is destroyed, or town, or nation. It's funny that, in Exodus 23, it says that, I will do this, and yet it's another indication showing that he uses physical people to carry out his will. Just like in Daniel, where, or like in the time where Israel was being captured, he used the Babylonian army to carry out his will. He used the Greek and the Roman armies to do that. So they were like his hands. So he used, in this case, the Israel army. It wasn't Israel at that time, though. It was just the children. Or I don't know what you'd call that group of Jews.
The tribes.
The 12 tribes, you're right. The 12 tribes. So he used the 12 tribes to carry out where he says, I will do this. And he uses the 12 tribes to destroy the Amorites. So just another indication of when God says, I will do this, he uses men to do it. It's just another, example.
Well, should we go on to the next portion? The besieging.
All right.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll read chapter 6. Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and the mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city once. Thus shall you do for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with the ram's horns, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up every one straight before him." So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord." And he said to the people, "Go forward, march around the city, and let the armed men pass on before the ark of the Lord." And just as Joshua had commanded the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward, blowing the trumpets, with the ark of the covenant of the Lord following them. The armed men were walking before the priests who were blowing the trumpets, and the rear guard was walking after the ark, while the trumpets blew continually. But Joshua commanded the people, "You shall not shout or make your voice heard, neither shall any word go out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shall shout." So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the city, going about it once. And they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. And Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. And the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord walked on. And they blew the trumpets continually, and the armed men were walking before them, and the rear guard was walking after the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. And the 2nd day they marched around the city once, and returned into their camp. So they did for 6 days. On the 7th day they rose early at the dawn of day, and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priest had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. And the city and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But you keep yourselves from the things devoted to destruction, lest when you have devoted them, you take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel a thing for destruction and bring trouble upon it. But all the silver and gold and every vessel of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord." So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. And as soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. Then they devoted all the city to destruction, both men and women, young and old, oxen and sheep and donkeys, with the edge of the sword. But 2 men who had spied out the land, Joshua said, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring out from there the woman and all who belong to her, as you swore to her." So the young men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and brothers and all who belonged to her, and they brought all her relatives and put them outside the camp of Israel. And they burned the city with fire, everything in it. Only the silver and the gold and the vessel of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. But Rahab the prostitute and her father's household and all who belonged to her, Joshua saved alive. And she has lived in Israel to this day because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Joshua laid an oath on them at that time, saying, "Cursed before the Lord be the man who rises up and rebuilds this city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn shall he lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest son shall he set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land.
Amen. This is a big chapter for the seventh day Sabbath. Like, did they observe it or didn't they? You know, if they marched 7 days, did they break the Sabbath, or what was that?
Well, if they didn't even follow the circumcision law, what would you think that they would follow the Sabbath law?
Oh, this was a command from God, though.
Right.
I mean, they did do it. They did march for 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
But marching around in a circle and blowing some trumpets isn't really work. Not really. Although they did some fighting on that last one. That might be considered some work.
Partial preterists would see this as a picture of the resurrection.
Can you elaborate?
It's the language Paul uses in 1 Thessalonians 4:16. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, the voice of the archangel with the trump of God. If Joshua is taking them into the city, and then the city gets burned, or what's left gets burned. It in a partial preterist construct, it could be a picture of that last trump. The dead in Christ shall rise first. The last trump, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15.
I was thinking when it was talking about the trumpets and there were 7 trumpets, that sounds a lot like Revelation.
Yeah, there are 7 trumpets there too.
So 7 is like, with it being a trumpet, it's almost like a completed prophecy, a completed, this is final, this is perfect because it's 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so my words will be perfected in the 7 plagues of Egypt, the 7 trumpets outside of Jericho, and the 7 trumpets again in Revelation.
There's a 7-fold judgment that's prophesied against Israel that seems to be carried out with the 7 bowls.
Mm-hmm.
But that we know is 70 AD.
Right. It is funny, though, that, in every instance that we see this 7-fold judgment, it happens like one right after the other, and they're pretty much done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the futurist and the partial preterist, I guess not partial preterist, because they look at most or all of Revelation as being in AD 70, but as far as the futurists, they look at this 7-fold prophecy as, gaps of thousands of years, or
Right.
between the different trumpet blowing. The Seventh-day Adventists believe that I forgot what trumpet that they're in or something. They're at the 3 angels message. So what is that after the 6th trumpet?
Yeah, I don't know.
chapter 7, I mean, verse 17, it says, Rahab was spared because she hid the messengers that we sent. See, like they could have easily just written they hid the
Angels. Right.
and but no, here they want to put messengers, but over here they want to put angels.
But it's the same word.
It is the same word.
That's why Armand, anytime he sees it, he always reads messenger. And
Right.
anytime he always sees Satan, he always reads adversary.
Yeah, I think that's much better.
It's consistent for sure.
In 5, it said, "Are you for us or for our adversaries? Are you for us or are you for our Satans?" Like,
Mm-hmm. Right. It's the same word.
mm-hmm.
But did you notice that they took Rahab and all her things and took her outside of the camp of Israel?
Yeah, she would be on the outside. And then somehow she married one of them, I guess.
Yeah, somehow she gets inside, but at the beginning she's like put outside of the camp, almost just like a leper.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like only by the grace of God miracle that she lived. Like, he could have just as easily been like, "No, I didn't make that deal with the woman. You people did. That's your problem." No, he honored it.
So she is the only Jerichoan with her family that lived. So Jesus has Jerichonian in his line.
Yep. Which means they can't be Nephilims. That's a big point right there. That means the people of Jericho and the people
I've never heard that before. I've never heard that before. They're saying that Jericho were full of Nephilim.
They're trying to say that's why. Yeah, they're trying to say after the flood, somehow the Nephilims got through the ark or came back afterwards. Okay. And what happened is now Joshua is going through and he has to kill all these tribes and people because they're all Nephilims.
You're talking about the bloodlines, that they had to stop the Nephilim bloodline, and that was what was inside Jericho. And yeah, that doesn't make any sense if there's something from Jericho that survived.
Exactly. And there's other people that survive too later. So it's clearly they're not being exterminated because they have some sort of genetic problem. They're being because their iniquity is full and God wants them out of here.
That's the serpent seed doctrine that you're speaking against.
Yeah, well, I figured I would mention it. Other people do listen to these sometimes. But there are people that would support that and say, "Oh yeah, that's why they had to go kill them all. It's because they were all genetic abominations, hybrids and stuff." And that's the only way it makes sense, because why would God have them kill all these people?
So how could one family not have that bloodline?
Exactly.
That's a good point to bring to anyone who says that about Jericho.
Yeah, and not just Jericho, it's all the tribes of all the land, all of them, the Amorites, all of them.
Right.
But yeah, Jericho is the best point because Rahab was saved out of it, and her whole family. Not just her, but her whole household. Everything. And then yeah, she eventually is she's part of the lineage to Christ. So
is she in the Matthew lineage or is she in the Luke lineage? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's part of Christ's or Mary's or whichever one it is, but she's in one of them. At least. I don't know.
She's not in both?
She might be in both. I just don't remember off the top.
Matthew.
Does it say who she married?
Solomon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab.
Boaz. His mother was Rahab.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same Boaz that married Ruth?
Yep.
Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth.
So Boaz was half Jerichonian and half of whatever tribe his father was. And then Ruth was half what country was she from?
Was Ruth a Moabite or no? I don't
She
know.
was a
Moab.
Moabitess, yeah.
So she was
Moab.
half Moabite.
And the
Or
Moabites,
she was all Moabite.
yeah, and the Moabites came from Lot.
So then Ruth's child was only 1/4 of the 12 tribes, whatever tribe that was.
Just a smidgen.
Yeah. Outside blood.
But yeah, see, already bringing the Gentiles in already.
Mm-hmm.
Got a
Yep.
couple in there going in there already.
I mean, you've reduced the whatever tribe. Who was Rahab's husband's name now?
It was like Salmon or Saul, something like that.
Okay.
Salmon.
So that's so now the lineage of Christ has just been reduced to 1/4 of that tribe.
That's enough, apparently.
Since he come from Judah, I guess that would be who the husband was from the tribe of Judah.
Shall we go on to 7?
I said, go for it. Who wants to read?
Any chance either of you two feel like picking up a portion?
I suppose I will. Hang on. Let me get I got out of it.
I actually like this part of the story, even though it is kind of, these stories are kind of brutal, but I like this story because it shows that if they would have just listened to God or consulted him first, they could
Guess who?
they could have spared themselves this thing that's about to happen. But they messed up because
Hello, brother.
oh, hello.
Guess who showed up?
Hey,
Hey.
I'll be on in 2 minutes. Just finishing up a phone call.
Okay.
All right, y'all.
All right, you want to read or you want to wait?
Let's wait for
Right.
Chris.
Yeah.
Go ahead, y'all, because I don't know. It's a call from Washington. Go ahead, Ted. Keep at it, man.
Okay. Joshua 7. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth Aven, to the east of Bethel, and told him, go up and spy out the region. So the men went up and spied out Ai. When they returned to Joshua, they said, not all the army will have to go up against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it, and do not weary the whole army, for only a few people live there. So about 3,000 went up, but they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people melted in fear and became like water. So Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust in their heads. And Joshua said, alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Pardon your servant, Lord. What can I say now that Israel has been rooted by its enemies? The Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe out our name from the earth. What then will you do for your own great name? The Lord said to Joshua, Stand up. What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things they have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you any more unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. Go consecrate the people. Tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There are devoted things among you, Israel. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove them. In the morning, present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe the Lord chooses shall come forward clan by clan. The clan the Lord chooses shall come forward family by family. And the family the Lord chooses shall come forward man by man. Whoever is caught with the devoted things shall be destroyed by fire, along with all that belongs to him. He has violated the covenant of the Lord and has done an outrageous thing in Israel. Early the next morning, Joshua had Israel come forward by tribes, and Judah was chosen. The clans of Judah came forward, and the Zerahites were chosen. He had the clan of the Zerahites come forward by families, and Zimri was chosen. Joshua had his family come forward man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was chosen. Then Joshua said to Achan, My son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell him what you have done. Do not hide it from me. Achan replied, It is true. I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. When I saw in the plunder a beautiful robe from Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent, with the silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent, with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons and daughters, his cattle, donkeys, and sheep, his tent, and all that he had, to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today. Then all Israel stoned him, and after they had stoned the rest, they burned them. Over Achan they heaped up a large pile of rocks, which remain to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. Therefore, that place has been called the Valley of Achor ever since. A lot of history in there.
Yeah, so you see, they didn't listen to Jericho. Somebody took something, and it screwed them over. Joshua did not say, and he didn't consult the Lord on the battle plan before Ai. He was just like, we wanted Jericho. Like, because, Joshua was one of those good guys of faith. He was ready to go into the land with Caleb already, way back 40 years ago. So he was like all gung-ho probably after Jericho, the success there. So he just automatically was just like, you know what? We don't even have to send all these guys out there to Ai to kill them. Like, it's cool. We can do it with like 3,000 dudes or so. So you guys go. But he didn't know that Achan had stolen those things. So, so they lost. And that is also a setup for later. Joshua was all asking God here, like, yo, what are you going to do? Like, what? Like, how are you going to make a name for yourself? All the people of the land are going to hear about this, and they're going to come and surround us and kill us all. Which is exactly what happens very shortly. They do get surrounded by everybody, but I think that was part of the Lord's plan the entire time. Like, he knew somebody was going to take that thing. Whatever. He knew Achan was going to do that. But what do you guys think?
Do you know what Akan means?
I did, but I don't know.
Trouble.
Right.
So that's a play on words. I wonder if all the other selections, that led up to Akan have meanings, and if you could chain those meanings together. I looked up Akan.
But yeah, not only did they destroy him, but they destroyed his whole household and everything he had. They completely cut him out. Just I'll cut that guy off. Like he's done. You messed up.
So why would a parent name their child Trouble unless this was a name given because it wasn't really their names?
Yeah, it could be that.
Just like when we had read the other night of Philemon, and it was Onesimus, which means useful. I'm just,
Right.
Looking more closely at the names that I had before.
Right. Well, that's kind of like the one thing that what's that famous pastor guy? I forget his name, but he does the thing with Adam to Noah, where he tells you the meanings of all their names, and it does that nice.
Yeah,
little,
Chuck Missler.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tried to do that with like Cain's lineage. You can find all of them. All those people after the flood, like they all like that. The people that were named after the flood, that's where we get all the geography and all the names for all the places pretty much from. Except, there's the whatever tongue, and then there's the Greek tongue. So there's two different versions for each one.
Akron was from what house?
Judah. Well, ultimately, they were all from Judah. Achan was from Judah, ultimately.
I wonder what Zabdi was. Let me look. Ah. Dowry or endowed. So endowed trouble. And Zabdi was taken by the Zerahites. So I guess the name would be Zerah.
Yeah.
Look that up. I guess you can't really follow the line because it's means brightness. So brightness endowed trouble. Oh, yeah, you can.
Ain't that a coinky dink?
Brightness endowed trouble because he saw, something that he wanted to keep for himself, and he saw the shiny silver.
He saw some shinies, all right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And then another little interesting part, not really, but it, kind of, you could use this to support the whole Job. Job is not, or whatever, the Satan character in Job is not going back and forth between heaven or whatever, presenting yourself before the Lord, that whole thing.
Yeah, they presented all the stuff there. Right. I noticed that too.
Before the Lord right here, and they weren't in heaven. They were they were right outside, they were in their camp, right outside Ai. So just because they're presenting themselves before the Lord or something doesn't mean that they're in heaven, like ever. It's always somewhere here on the earth.
I wonder, like, if it was presented in front of the ark, or if it was just, in the center of the camp, which the Lord would have been in the center.
Maybe. I'm not sure exactly what. I don't think it really says. I mean, it seems that they have like the whole thing set up, but then they keep moving. Like, I guess maybe they take all their tents down, put them all back up, and put them all back in the proper order, facing the correct way, and all. With the ark, I guess, in the middle somewhere. And that's another thing that should be there. So it's just like the stones from the Jordan River should be somewhere, and somebody should be able to find them. So should this pile of stones from Achan. That pile of stones should be there as well. Unless, somebody built a city there, I mean, the main point here is they didn't listen to God. They didn't consult God first. It's going to be a recurring problem through here. They did not. Joshua did not consult God before making the battle plan to go to Ai with 3,000 guys. The Lord God did not say to do that. Right? He didn't tell him to do any of that yet.
That's true.
I think he just got a little overzealous, and then he burst his own bubble because he didn't realize one of his own dudes had, messed up. I don't think he even realized that by one person doing that, it could screw everyone over.
I wonder if any of the 36 men were guilty, or if they were just guilty by association, by being in the nation.
36 men? What?
The 36 men that were killed.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When they were running.
Yeah. Okay. When they got turned around. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it doesn't say. Just sort of an interesting thing about how you interpret the old covenant versus the new. Whether it's if you look at it as guilt by association, or just by a blanket wrath, or if you look at it as God's always been specific, even within the covenants, that those 36 men were guilty as well.
Right. I would
Something
imagine.
to consider.
Yeah, it is. Because I would say ultimately that God knew dude was going to take the stuff, and he knew that he wasn't going to help him, and he knew because when you see his battle plan for Ai, like, it's kind of almost required that they did that, because
right,
without them doing that, their battle plan doesn't work.
Because it did say before that no one had the spirit within them, that all the kings were just melted away in fear.
Yeah.
And so then when the Amorites see that, hey, these guys are conquerable, let's go after them, and then we get that.
Yep. So I think it was kind of all planned from the beginning. Like, it was all part of the plan. Because without that happening, that little incident, then they wouldn't have been able to draw the Amorites or whoever out of the city.
Kind of deceptive warfare, isn't it?
It is, but that's why God's battle plan is far superior to whatever. Yeah, just send 2,000 or 3,000 down there. It's no problem. We got this. It's like, well, yeah, if God told you we got it, then we got it. But he didn't tell you that, did he? But it's kind of funny to see Joshua, of all people, make that mistake, because he said the same thing. He's like, oh, if only we would have stayed on the other side of the Jordan. That's just like saying, oh, if only we could gone back to Egypt, same difference, except 40 years later or more.
So was this for the promise of the 3 tribes? Because they were the only ones on the other side of the Jordan?
I guess so.
Remember when we talked about the half tribe of Manasseh and the other 2, which was it Gad and another one?
Oh, yeah, no, now I think they're all crossed over now. They're all across now. Now that they defeated Jericho and they're at Ai, they're all across. Oh, he got dropped. Bummer. Yeah, I think they were all across by this point. And yeah, it's the same thing over from previous, except Joshua and Caleb were the only two that were willing to go. But now Joshua is saying the same thing almost here. He's like, oh, why would you bring us over here just to have the Amorites destroy us? Why would you bring us out here out of Egypt to die in the desert?
How's that working for you, God, with your reputation?
Right? Yeah, he didn't realize that, like, oh man. So Joshua made a big boo-boo here, and then he was like, yo, God, what did you do that for? And then God was just like, what did I do that for? What did you do that for?
It's almost like it's a lesson of consecration or being separate from the world, if you look at it with a New Testament lens.
Right. Well, I mean, also they were told point blank, do not do anything with these people in the land. Do not befriend them. Do not do anything. Like, don't make buddies. Do not, because otherwise you're going to give their wives. You're going to take wives and whatnot, and you're going to start following their gods, and you're going to, turn against me. So yeah, he told them straight up before they even got into the land, way long ago. Like, do not make friends with these people. None of them. But they've already broken that one time. They made buddy with Rahab already. And they're gonna do it again shortly. They're gonna get tricked again. Rob, do you feel like reading anything? Or have you fallen asleep?
I can read. It took me a moment to find my screen here. Did you guys want to do 8?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we can do 8.
Might as well. I mean, it's still kind of early still. I mean, it's just like a lot of stuff happens here, but it's spread out over these next 8, 9, and 10, and then after that, after 10, it starts to die down from all the just explaining the battles and stuff, all that lovely stuff.
All right, I'll read 8 here. Let's see, from the King James. And the Lord said unto Joshua, fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise, go up to Ai, and see, I have given into thy hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only spoil thereof, and the cattle thereof shall ye take for a prey unto yourselves. Lay thee in ambush for the city behind it. So Joshua arose, and all the people of war, to go up against Ai. And Joshua chose out 30,000 mighty men of valor, and sent them away by night. And he commanded them, saying, behold, ye shall lie in the wait against the city, even behind the city. Go not very far from the city, but be ye all ready. And I and all the people that are with me will approach unto the city, and it shall come to pass, when they come out against us as at the first, that we will flee before them. Or they will come out after us, till we have drawn them from the city. For they will say, they flee before us, as at the first, therefore we will flee before them. Then ye shall rise up from the ambush and seize upon the city, for the Lord your God will deliver it into your hand. And it shall be, when we have taken the city, that ye shall set the city on fire, according to the commandment of the Lord shall ye do. See, I have commanded you. Joshua therefore sent them forth, and they went to lie in ambush, and abode between Bethel and Ai, on the west side of Ai. But Joshua lodged that night among the people. And Joshua rose up early in the morning, and numbered the people, and went up, he and the elders of Israel, before the people to Ai. And all the people, even the people of war that were with them, went up and drew nigh, and came before the city, and pitched on the north side of Ai. Now there was a valley between them and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men, and set them to lie in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city. And when they had set the people, even all the host that was on the north of the city, and their liers wait in the west of the city, Joshua went that night into the midst of the valley. And it came to pass, when the king of Ai saw it, that they had hasted and rose up early, and the men of the city went out against Israel to battle, he and all his people, and at the time appointed before the plain. But he wist not that there were liers in the ambush against him, behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel made as if they were beaten before them, and fled by the way of the wilderness. And all the people that were in Ai were called together to pursue after them, and they pursued after Joshua and drawn away from the city. And there was not a man left in Ai or Bethel that went out after Israel, and they left the city open and pursued after Israel. And the Lord said unto Joshua, stretch out the spear that is in thy hand toward Ai, for I will give it into thy hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand towards the city. And the ambush arose quickly out of their place, and they ran as soon as he had stretched out his hand. And they entered into the city, and took it, and hasted to set the city on fire. And when the men of Ai looked behind them, they saw, and behold, the smoke of the city ascended up to heaven. And they had no power to flee this way or that way. And the people that fled to the wilderness turned back upon the pursuers. And when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city, and the smoke of the city ascended, then they had turned again and slew the men of Ai. And the other issued out of the city against them. So they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side. They smote them, so that they let none of them remain or escape. And the king of Ai they took alive, and brought him to Joshua. And it came to pass, when Israel had made an end of slaying all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness wherein they chased them, and when they were fallen on the edge of the sword until they were consumed, that all the Israelites returned unto Ai, and smote it with an edge of the sword. And so it was that all that fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, even all the men of Ai. For Joshua drew not his hand back, wherewith he stretched out the spear until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Only the cattle and the spoil of Israel, only the spoil of that city of Israel took for a prey unto themselves, according to the word of the Lord which he had commanded Joshua. And Joshua burnt Ai and made it a heap forever, even a desolation to this day. And the king of Ai he hanged on a tree until eventide. And as soon as the sun was down, Joshua commanded that they should take his carcass down from the tree, and cast it into the entering of the gate of the city, and raise thereon a great heap of stones that remaineth unto this day. Then Joshua built an altar unto the Lord God of Israel in Mount Ebal, as Moses the servant of the Lord commanded the children of Israel, as is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of whole stones, over which no man hath lifted up any iron. And they offered therefore thereon burnt offerings unto the Lord, and sacrificed peace offerings. And he wrote there upon the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he wrote in the presence of the children of Israel. And all Israel and their elders and officers and their judges stood on this side and the ark, and on that side before the priests, the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, as well the stranger as he that was born among them, half of them over against the Mount Gerizim, and half of them over against the Mount Ebal. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded before that they should bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, blessing and cursings, according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded which Joshua read not before all the congregation of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the strangers that were conversing among them.
So at first you have 3,000 men, and then with the Lord's instruction you have 30,000. That's a 100-fold increase.
Yeah. So you see that Joshua sent out way too little and didn't wait for the appointed time. But it was an excellent battle plan. Like, I'm sure after the Lord told him the battle plan, he was like, oh, I see. I get it now. I see what you're doing here. It's like, we're going to trick them. We're going to make them think that we're going to flee away again, and they're going to beat us. But nope. We're going to come up from behind and burn their city when they're not paying attention. And then when they look back, we'll just go turn around and slaughter them. Perfect battle plan. But yeah, they killed everyone. All of them. None remaining. Every single last person in Ai dead. Well, at least that's what it makes it sound like. But to think that they actually had 12,000 people exactly is kind of silly.
Maybe the numbers were like rounded.
Yeah. It doesn't say that Israel lost anybody. They might have, but it doesn't mention.
Is this the first person that was hung on a tree?
I don't remember what they did previously with Moses when they were messing with those other kings. I think those other kings were still alive. So yeah, that might be the first time. Yeah. That pile of stones should be there too. They don't really know where the city of Ai is. I was looking to see if I could find where it was, but they think there's like 3 different places where it could be. But nonetheless, all of them, I can assure you, are ruins, heaps of ruins. Like barely even like, well, that's the city. Like it looks like a hill of dirt.
Well, the pile of stones is a memorial.
Yeah, and it's like, oh wow, they really did destroy the city. It's completely gone. Like there is nothing left. It's just a little pile. But yeah, you guys see how like definitely that battle plan has not worked had they not messed up. But now is exactly what happens after this. Is Joshua is now what he said to the Lord is actually what's going to happen. Now all the Amorite kings and whatnot, they all do come and join up against him, which is the funnest part in this whole book. But that's chapter 10. And of course, chapter 9 is about the lovely trickery with the Gibeonites. Again, they make friends when they're not supposed to. And again, they don't consult God first.
Didn't you say the Gibeonites were the Galatians?
Did I say that? The Gauls are the Galatians.
Oh, Gauls. Never mind.
The Gibeonites are some Canaanite people or whatever, one of those tribes that was there. And yeah, they totally hoodwinked Joshua there and the Israelites. Because they brought their old bottles, you know? Hey, Israelites, check out our really old beat up bottles. Like they're worn out bottles. Mandela bottles.
Hmm.
Wow, I didn't think you guys would be so quiet about these chapters. I don't know. I guess it is a lot of slaughter, but none of you guys got nothing on this?
I got a question for you guys. What do you see like the do you see the entering into the land as a shadow of anything? And if so, what is it?
I mean, it could be a foreshadow of entering the kingdom of God, but it's just, that's pretty much all. Like, they're going into the land, but then later they get booted. But the land that we're going to, you can't get booted out of that.
Right.
Well, it's almost like, going, it's having one battle right after the other. So if you look at it that way, I think it's Romans, from glory to glory. It's also in 1 John. That it could be like a continual purification or sanctification process or something.
Right. Or it's the fight against the principalities and powers, as opposed to flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm. And the end of each lesson, you recognize the sufficiency of God.
And each step, he gives it into your hand, but that doesn't mean you're going to keep it.
True.
That's another thing that keeps going on.
Yeah, well, they could have kept it if they would have listened, but they never listen. They keep
Right.
doing stuff that they either do stuff that he never said to do, or or they just straight up break it, and they're just like, oh
So they stepped outside of covenant with God.
yeah,
What's interesting about covenant, I was watching a video, I don't know how I came across it, of one of the Hebrew roots people. And there's so many of them now, it's crazy. And it's talking about Shavuot and calling it a renewed covenant, of course. And he says that the renewed covenant hasn't happened yet. And I thought to myself, like, how is he even defining covenant? Because there's a covenant, and then there's the fulfillment of the covenant. The covenant is really like a promise.
Well, when he says that they haven't even entered into the covenant yet,
Right.
I would say that that's one of the Hebrew roots people that another Jewish rabbi who's full Jewish said, don't worry about the Hebrew roots guys. Eventually they'll become full Jews. So it looks like he's almost at that step, if not actually crossed over and still continuing to call himself Hebrew roots. I have a
But
friend who she had there were 5 of them, and they were all in Hebrew roots together, and the other 4 are complete. They've gone to complete Judaism now. It's just a slope.
it's a right process. And this guy's he's contradictory in his own theology, though, because he says for one thing, we're not in the renewed covenant yet, because it says in Jeremiah, what did he say? Oh, all shall know the Lord. He says, well, that hasn't happened yet. So that means we are not in the renewed covenant.
So I'm wondering how he would take James's interpretation of the restoration portion of Amos in Acts chapter 15.
Exactly. And how do you take the whole book of Hebrews?
Right. Well, I know Hebrew roots guys don't like Hebrews.
No, they don't.
They like to throw that in Galatians. Those are like the thorns in their side. They say, Paul was misunderstood and it's not what it really says it is, or or they want to throw out Hebrews altogether.
And then he doesn't say that you have to become Jewish, like you were just saying. Some of them are on the path to just totally becoming Jewish. He says, it's now not according to ethnicity at all. But then he fails to realize, if you're going to take Jeremiah 31 literally by saying, well, not everybody knows the Lord now, so we're not in the renewed covenant, then you have to continue taking it literally and say, well, this renewed covenant, in quotes, is not for Gentiles, it's only for Judah and Israel, which he doesn't do. So he's totally contradictory. He doesn't see it, though.
Yeah, I don't think you can just pick and choose what you want to take literally and what you don't. You have to let the the Bible determine.
Right.
That's what they think we do. They're like, you're just picking and choosing. It's like, no, I'm not. It might seem like I'm picking and choosing, but I'm not.
Context is everything.
But it's tricky, though, because when you're reading Old Testament prophecies, like the fulfillment of the new covenant is kind of like worded mysteriously. Like it's prophesied there that the new covenant will come, but it says it's only going to be for Judah and Israel. Well, that's actually not true. And it's not like God is lying. It's just that, as Paul says, it was still couched in mystery then. So you got to be careful. Like, you can't say Well, that's not literal. Like that's how you like you won't know what to take literal and what not to take literal until you know what the New Testament says about it. It's the New Testament that tells you what you could take literal and what you can't take literal in the old. Like according to the New Testament, we know now that it's not just for Judah and Israel, but we also know that it's not like the old covenant. So that part's literal.
Right. We just saw an instance of someone from Jericho survived and they became Israel.
Right.
Yeah, and that's about to happen again. But actually, here also at the end of chapter 8, it does seem that they learned their lesson, and then Joshua goes ahead and reads all the book of the law, not only like to everyone. Even it seems here like Rahab is even listening. The strangers that were there talking with them.
And he wrote it on the stones.
Mm-hmm. And again, a similarity between Moses and Joshua. Moses, put up your staff, split the waters. Joshua, put up your spear.
Now, this was what mountain?
Mount Ebal. Joshua built an altar unto the Lord of Israel in Mount Ebal, verse 30.
And what does Ebal mean?
I don't know.
Okay, give me a minute.
Stone or bare mountain.
I was looking at Mount Gerizim.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that?
That's where the Samaritans worshipped.
Yeah, that's where the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4 was like, at this mountain we worship.
Right.
But you Jews say in Jerusalem one ought to worship.
So I think it would be safe to say at this point right here, everybody should be on the same page. They should all know the law at this point. They should, because they just went over it all together, like everybody. Right? So they should all know it now.
I'm looking at this commentary, and it says at some point in one of his sermons, Moses predicts that when Israel moves to Canaan, Mount Gerizim will be blessed, but Mount Ebal will be cursed in Deuteronomy 11:29.
Interesting. Okay, so because it does say
Moses doesn't explain
half of
why
them,
that would be.
right, but here in Joshua right here, it just explains it. Yeah, well, it doesn't, not yet, but half and half. You have half on this side and half on that side. It seems like everybody was split evenly. Even the strangers were split evenly.
And it says many years later, Joshua sacks Ai, which name is possibly related to the name Ebal. And to commemorate that, he builds an altar to the Lord on Mount Ebal. The Israelites present themselves, and half of them stand in front of Mount Gerizim and the other half in front of Mount Ebal. So I'm thinking that when Moses is predicting this in Deuteronomy 11:29, he's not really talking about the land. He's talking about the people. What do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. He's talking about the people standing at their respective mountains, right? If the people standing at the base of one, or whatever, facing the one, or the ones that are cursed, well, then they're something that they do shortly. There's something that they're gonna do here. I don't know. It might be something to do with these Gibeonites. I don't know.
Now, which one did I say was cursed?
I think you said Ebal was cursed and Gerizim was blessed. I think that's what you said.
I think that's what I said too.
Mm-hmm.
What does Gerizim mean?
It might not be Gerizim. Gerizim isn't the I am the plural or something. Like Gary.
Oh, right. But it does say mount, so it does look like one.
If you want, I could probably knock out 9. Those Gibeonites. If y'all are down.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Gerizim means a mountain cut in two.
Well, the people were a mountain cut in two. They were 2 different places. Yeah.
Separation from the sheep and the goats.
Maybe.
Mount of Olives, wasn't that split in two?
That it was.
Yeah, there might be something there.
Sounds like there is.
So what did you say chapter 9 has in store for us? I didn't get that far tonight.
The treachery of the Gibeonites. The stealthiness.
Something about bottles, right?
That definitely their bottles. Yeah, the Gibeonites. Tricksters.
You've piqued my curiosity.
All right, well, I'm down to read it. Since I love Joshua so much, shouldn't I do all the reading?
Sure.
Not all.
Yep.
Woo! This King James, man. Wow.
I don't know why you torture yourself with the V's and the U's and all that.
It's hard.
It's
a hard read.
Instead of the caves.
Yeah, I'll never forget that cause and caves. Yeah.
All right, here we go, I guess. And it came to pass when all the kings which were on this side of Jordan, in the hills and in the valleys, and all the coasts of the great sea, over against Lebanon, the Hittite and the Amorite, Canaanite, Perizzite, Hivite, and the Jebusite, heard thereof, that they gathered themselves together to fight with Joshua and with Israel with one accord. And when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard about what Joshua had done at Jericho and to Ai, they did work wilily, and went and made as if they had been ambassadors, and took old sacks upon their asses, and wine bottles, old and rent and bound up, and old shoes and clotted upon their feet, and old garments upon them, and all the bread of their provisions was dry and moldy. And they went unto Joshua unto the camp at Gilgal, and said unto him, and the men of Israel, we be come from a far off country. Now therefore make ye a league with us. And when the men of Israel said unto the Hivites, I don't even know what that word is, paradenture, ye dwell among us. How we would make a league with you? And they said unto Joshua, we are thy servants. And Joshua said unto them, who are ye? And from whence come ye? And they said unto him, from very far away country thy servants have come. Because of the name of the Lord thy God, we have heard of the fame of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did under the kings of the Amorites that were beyond Jordan, to Sihon, king Heshbon, and King Og of Bashan, which was in Ashtaroth. Wherefore our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spake unto us, saying, take victuals with you for the journey, and go to meet them, and say unto them, we are your servants, therefore now make a league with us. This is our bread we took hote for our provisions out of our houses on the very day we came forth to go unto you. But now behold, it is dry and it is moldy. And these bottles of wine which we filled were new, and behold, they be rent. And these be our garments and the shoes, and they become old by reason of the very long journey. And the men took their victuals and asked not counsel at the mouth of the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them and made a league with them to let them live. And the princes of the congregation swear unto them. And it came to pass at the end of 3 days after they had made a league with them, they heard that they were their neighbors, and they dwelt among them. And the children of Israel journeyed and came unto their cities in the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, and Shephirah, and Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. And the children of Israel smote them not, because the princes of the congregation had sworn unto them by the Lord God of Israel. And all the congregation murmured against the princes. But all the princes said unto the congregation, we have sworn unto them by the Lord God of Israel. Now therefore we may not touch them. This we will do to them. We will even let them live, lest wrath be upon us, but because of our oath which we swear unto them. And the princes said unto them, let them live, but let them be hewers of wood and drawers of water unto all the congregation. And the princes had promised, as the princes had promised them. And Joshua called for them, and he spake to them, saying, wherefore have ye beguiled us, saying, we are very, very far from you, when ye dwell among us? Now therefore ye are cursed, and there shall be none of you be freed from being bondmen, and hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of God. And they answered Joshua and said, because it was certainly told thy servants, how that the Lord God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore we were sore afraid of our lives because of you, and have done this thing. And now behold, we are in thine hand, and it seemeth good and right unto thee to do unto us do. And so he did unto them, and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, that they slew them not. And Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation, and for the altar of the Lord, even unto this day, in the place which he should choose. So you see those little tricksters there. They were like, oh yeah, we come from so far away, man. We came to serve you. Like, we're just your servants. And then Joshua completely forgot about the fact that he just read the part that said, do not make any covenants with anybody. And then they do. But they tricked them with all their old stuff. They were like, look at all this raggedy stuff I'm wearing. Like, look at our food. It's old and from the long journey. But really, we just live 10 minutes that way.
In the ESV Study Bible, there's a commentary on verse 23. It says there's an interesting ambiguity in Joshua's words to the Gibeonite deceivers. They are pronounced cursed, never to be anything but servants. Specifically, they are to be cutters of wood and drawers of water, which were menial tasks in ancient societies. Yet, while verse 21 states that these duties are to be carried out for all the congregation, Joshua assigns the Gibeonites, more particularly to the house of my God. And the summary statement in verse 27 combines both the general and particular statements. Supplying wood and water for the extensive sacrificial system in Israel would indeed be hard work, but to be closely associated with the house of God should be construed as a blessing, which is in Psalms 84, verse 10.
Well, it is kind of a blessing because they all didn't get slaughtered by the Israelites. They got out of it because they tricked them into making a deal. So they didn't die. So they were actually wise Gibeonites. I think it refers to them later sometime in some other book, and it says the Gibeonites by wisdom had obtained this. Even though they
Cunning.
lied. I mean, God saves them anyway, even though they lied.
Yeah, well, how many times did Jacob lie? Doesn't Jacob mean deceiver?
It's funny. So how's that for keeping those 10 commandments? Yeah. But don't you think that's pretty crafty? They took all their old stuff and they pretended to be from far away. Like, I don't think I would have been able to think of such a plan like that if I heard that there's a bunch of dudes coming to like kick our butts. You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh crap, we gotta do something here. How can we dodge this bullet? Just take all your old stuff. But again, it even pointed out here. It said point blank, like Joshua, they did not consult. All of them did not consult the Lord's voice or counsel or anything. They were like, okay, all right, cool.
But it says that God in chapter 10 actually honors that vow and defends the Canaanite allies now.
Yes, exactly. That's the funny part. That comes later in the next chapter. They're getting attacked by all those kings. All of these nations come against them all at the same time. And instead of going to attack the Israelites because they already know that those guys are cheating somehow, instead they're going to go and attack those traitorous Gibeonites. Right? They're going to go attack their own people and be like, "Yo, screw the Israelites. We can't beat them, but we can beat these guys." So they're going to go take them out. And then the Gibeonites are like, "Oh, save us. Please save us. We're your servants." And so Joshua takes everybody like all through the night and stuff and gets there and saves them. Of course, there's a bit of chicanery going on there, or whatever you want to call it, with the whole stopping of the sun and such. But aside from that, you guys got anything on these treacherous or traitorous Gibeonites? I must be from like a different spirit or something, because like I love this stuff. You guys are all just like, this is stupid. Can we quit this book?
No, not really. It's taking me, I'm looking into it a little deeper if I can. But I'm sort of preoccupied now with the first verse in chapter 10. Adonai Zedek.
Adonai as opposed to Malcolm.
Yes, and wasn't Melchizedek king of Jerusalem?
Yeah.
King of Salem,
And-
yeah.
And Adonai Zedek is also king of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem was
This is
not always.
This is when they first take Jerusalem in the beginning. Like this is when they get it for the first time in chapter 10. Right? It was already built. It was already there. Except I think it was originally called Salem.
I can't help it, but every time I hear Jerusalem and I think of peace, I think of Isaiah 54 and Ephesians, I don't know if it's 2 or 3, I got to look, where it says that he is our peace who has made the two one.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaiah 54, I think it is where it talks about the fruit of the lips. Those who are far and those who are near. It's quoted in Ephesians, and it's a picture of it's defining peace as bringing Jew and Gentile together.
I guess it was too late for Rob, but chapter 10 has the sun standing still instead of the earth stop rotating.
We'll definitely, maybe we'll have to save that one for when he comes back. Might have to,
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. But no, I think that's a good portion that we did tonight. We did 5,
Oh yeah,
7, and 8. That's pretty good. That's a
and
lot.
9.
That's a lot right there. I mean, thinking about all that just happened in those couple chapters, like think about it. That's from Rahab through Achan's sin, through the Gibeonites, and through the taking of Jericho, and like everything, and the destruction of Ai, and the mess up at Ai. Bunch of stuff.
Almost looks like from glory to glory.
And yeah, they're all like, "Yo, why did you do this? Why did you trick us?" It's like, well, you guys are gonna kill us. I mean, what do you want us to do? But see, they heard. News traveled fast apparently back then. They had all heard already. Like they had just defeated Ai, and they're already bringing it up. They're like, "Oh, we heard about that too." Yeah, they had just done that. Like, not. But then that's exactly what Joshua feared in the first place when they were taking Ai. It was like, yo, you're going to make them all come against us. But that was God's plan the whole time, it seems, because yeah, later in that chapter 10, he gets everybody all gathered together all in one spot, and then he kills them all with hailstones. More people died from the hailstones than did from the sword from the children of Israel. Think about that. So there should technically be somewhere out there a giant field that has just a bunch of smashed up skeletons like all over the place. Unless they went ahead and buried them all, which I doubt. Unless they were going to take the city and like live there. But yeah, that's what, like 5 nations come against them at least, or something, or more, and they all get smashed by hailstones. All of them.
It says 5 kings of the Amorites.
Yeah, and then all their people.
And then the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, and the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon.
Sounds like 10 kings right there. So pretty much lots of dudes ganging up on them.
Or all of those 5 were.
Yeah, all of those 5 were the 5. And
Amorites.
Yeah, okay, that's.
I'm not sure how to take it.
But still, five different dudes with all their armies and coming after you. That's not gonna be fun.
Right. It was a multitude, regardless.
Yeah, probably a lot bigger than all what the Israelites had. It had to be. I mean, that's why God had to smite them with hailstones, because they couldn't have possibly without him doing that. But that part interests me because could you imagine being in a battle and like there's all sorts of people everywhere, like just doing sword battle and whatnot, and then you have a hailstorm come and it smashes all of your enemies, but it doesn't kill any of your dudes. Like they're not getting hit by hailstones. Only the bad guys are. Unless the Amorites didn't have shields and the Israelites did.
I think that the 5 kings of the Amorites are those ones listed.
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, that makes more sense. That's 10 kings would be pretty crazy. 5, that's more believable.
So they were all in the Amorite nation,
Mm-hmm.
and they fled to the cave of Makkedah, and I'm wondering what Makkedah means.
I'm not sure what half these things mean. I just know like where they came from. Like Amorites came from Amorius, stuff like that. Gibeonites came from a dude named Gibeon,
Makkedah means a place of shepherds.
Oh.
How do they define these words anyway? Like you could never get that from looking at the occurrences of the word.
I guess they take the root form and like try to look at the Hebrew roots and the combination of them. So I would think that Edah would be one of the things and Mak would be another. Or Makeh and then Da or something like that. But let's see, one says pointing, marking, selecting.
Yeah, so many words are like compound.
Mm-hmm. Just like Malak Zadok.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all over the place on Google as far as what Makkedah means. Here's one that says it means worshiping or burning. One says fasting. So I'm just saying pretty much, I guess, that the name would be unreliable, the definition of it.
Oh yeah, we definitely saved chapter 10. Chapter 10 is ginormous. It's huge. It's like 2 whole pages.
How many verses in 10?
43.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been looking at a bunch of videos on Shavuot, and most of them are from the Hebrew roots people. That's another compound word, shav and oat.
Mm-hmm.
But none of them call it the sign of sevens, because that's what the 2 words mean. Oat, a sign.
Oat, sign. Okay.
Yeah, so I did a study on it a little while ago. It seems like the day of Pentecost was the fulfillment of a certain sign And
Yeah, we just reached the 50th day of Easter.
yeah,
So all the Lutheran churches were celebrating Pentecost.
yeah. Now, it's interesting that the timing of the day of Pentecost aligns with when they went into the land and got to Mount Sinai. It's the same. It's the same month. It could even be the same day, but it's somewhere around the same time of the month. It's a third. I think it's a third month from Aviv.
Are you saying where they heard the thunder
Yeah.
and they heard the Lord's voice and they shook away with fear and told Moses, "You go up there, lest we die"?
Pretty much, yeah. And then, or when they received the Ten Commandments, because you have the Passover while they're still in Egypt, and then you have unleavened bread still in Egypt, first fruits when they get into the land, when they get the first barley harvest in the land, and then they count 50 days from there to Shavuot, and that's about when they get the law, and it
So would you
corresponds.
say then, as far as the New Testament, is the law being written on our hearts, that would be the
Yeah,
outpouring of the Spirit at Pentecost?
yeah, but it's kind of like I look at it like an antithesis, though, like a correlation, but an opposite. Like how Adam and Christ.
Antithesis to Christ, right?
Yeah. So I look at it like, well, that's the beginning of the old covenant. Pentecost is the beginning of the new covenant.
Makes sense.
And Shav and Ot is the sign of the sevens, but the word Ot is Aleph Vav Tav. The three letters Aleph Vav Tav. So Ot is
Also, the meaning of 7 means perfect, so it's almost like it could mean perfect sign.
yeah. It could be right. You could say perfect sign, or you could say the sign fulfilled, counted by the sevens, and then adding the extra day makes it a jubilee.
Right, which is like the ultimate rest, right?
Yeah,
We're getting into Acts chapter 2 territory.
yep. And Shav is the same root word as you get the Sabbath. But Ot is interesting because Ot, if you analyze it, you have the Aleph and the Tav with the Vav in the middle. And Jesus is the Aleph Tav.
And the Vav is a tent peg, isn't it? Or a nail?
The Vav is a nail. The Aleph
So
is
it's the cross.
right. So Aleph was drawn in the ancient pictograph as an ox, and the letter is always silent. And then the Vav, or the Tav rather, is a cross. So the Ot, or sign, is a silent sacrifice nailed to a cross.
Right.
So, and I looked up the word Ot quite a while ago. I found 2 etymological websites, only 2. There aren't a whole lot, but I found 2 of them that say that our word oath comes from the Hebrew ot. Sounds alike,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes sense
A lot of
because because if the ot is translated as a sign, like 2 things were given as a sign. At least there's more, but I'm sure I know of 2. It's the Sabbath and circumcision. Both of them were given as signs, but what were signs there for? To point to Christ, you know? So if they
And
were,
then, well, the seal of the Spirit was as a sign too.
yeah. Christ giving his spirit. But if you think about it, circumcision was given to Abraham as a sign. And I look at Pentecost like the fulfillment of the sign given to Abraham of circumcision. Because Abraham was told he would be the father of many nations, and that begins to take place on Pentecost, where they're given power to go preach to many nations. Whoa. Well, guys, I'm getting tired. I'm going to sign out.